Hello, live from Plymouth, it's Talk of the Town. It's so nice to see you again. Ken and I just got back from a month-long vacation, but we're so happy to be home. This is our hometown, and you know we love it. You know, I got to the studio tonight, and I took one look at myself, and my hair looks like a plucked chicken, but that's okay. Let's get right to the underwriters, and I want to say hello to Jeff Cohen and One Stop Painting. Great company, great service, and I want to thank you, Jeff, for doing such a wonderful job hosting last week. It was a great show. Brewster PC Solutions with Wrestling Brewster. He has a show right here on PAC TV. Kenny's the producer. Attorney Trifletti and Costa on Long Pond Road, fabulous attorney. By the way, you can watch Talk of the Town on YouTube. Just put in Talk of the Town with an E and go to YouTube. You'll get the entire show there. Another fabulous underwriter, number one fabulous underwriter, David and Kevin Gallerani, owners of Cape Auto and Cape Service, locations on Samoset Street and Sandwich Street right here in Plymouth. You know, I bet their Lions March Vegas night was a huge success, and I know they do such a wonderful job, you know, and all that money, every penny comes right back to this community. The Lions of Plymouth do such a fabulous job. And matter of fact, I think David is still doing that special with the 2020 license plates. If you go in for a loop change,
an oil change.
An oil change. It only costs $33. $38, and then you get your plate.
You give him $40, he gives you the plate and a free oil change.
Okay, so $40 and whatever. Just go see David Gallerani. Maybe he'll call in and he'll give us the details. This is what I get for being away for 5 weeks. Now, you know, folks, you can call in the show, 830-3971. I have a great guest tonight, and I have been looking forward to it for a long time. Now, you know, speaking of that, I know everybody knows my guest tonight because you read him every Wednesday and Saturday in the Old Colony Memorial, our paper of record right here in Plymouth. But he is here for another reason. Aside from that, he, in my estimation, and thousands of people, think Frank Mand is the most talented person when it comes to photojournalism. He is wonderful. And perhaps a lot of you saw his photos. Every morning he posted them on Facebook. He did this for a year, and we're going to talk about it tonight, and we have some of those photos with us. Please welcome Frank Mand.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Frank.
That was very flattering. But if your hair is plucked chicken, I'm an unplucked chicken.
we're good together like
Yeah.
that. No, Frank, well, let's start this way first. People know you through the OCM and your photos, but give us a little personal information. Married, children, tell us a little bit.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I've been married 7 times. So I have 14 children. No, I've been married for over 30 years.
Wow.
Mary, my wife, is a special needs teacher in Marshfield, and she's this year is her last year after 35 years. She went downtown Boston today and spoke to the MTA officials, and she's all set for retirement. She's excited. I'm excited for her. I have 2 boys, one who's 28, Robert Angus, and a 15-year-old son who's at Plymouth High School, Plymouth South High School, Patrick.
Great school.
And he's in the 10th grade.
He's in the 10th grade. So, and kudos to Mary, 35 years.
Yeah.
That's a great accomplishment.
It's unimaginable to a lot of people, to me.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly someone who has worked at the same job a long time.
Well, she married a free spirit.
Yeah, she's a special needs teacher, and people say, oh, now we know why she married you. I have my own special needs.
Oh,
and
yeah, that's what it is.
She's very good at managing my eccentricities as much as they can be managed.
Opposite attracts, Frank.
Maybe.
When did you start in the newspaper business?
Well, interesting. I was the so-called creative writer in college. I went to Boston College for my undergraduate degree. And when I got out, I realized I have this great degree. I have a lot of interest in poetry and literature, and how am I going to make a living? And I realized the people that had spent a little time writing for the campus magazine in Boston College, it's called The Heights, or other more practical things, had an advantage over me. And so I started out working as a copywriter for an old department store in Waltham called Grover Cronin.
Oh, I remember.
And I actually
it.
was telling somebody today that I started out writing about women's fashion.
No, sir,
Yes.
Frank.
Miss D was the head of the women's ready-to-wear, and she taught me all. She would ask me, "Have you read your WWD, your Women's Wear Daily today?" And she taught me about dolman sleeves and all sorts
Oh
of,
my
interesting.
Gosh, Frank.
And that didn't last that long, but at least it was a means to an end. And while I was doing that job, I was pestering the editors at the Patriot Ledger to give me a chance. And the first job I ever had, interestingly enough, the first assignment was to cover the 5th year anniversary of the blizzard of '78 at Burt's.
Oh,
Remember Burt's used to have a rock in their foyer?
Yes.
And so that was my first story for the Ledger.
Wow.
And then they had me cover Nancy Talbot's retirement party. And I guess I did a good enough job, and I ended up getting a job with them as a correspondent, and then shocked the journalism world when I left to take a job as an editor with a local paper in Kingston called the Independent Voice.
Yep.
And what attracted me to that was I got to do everything. I got to write editorials, cover stories, take pictures, work in the darkroom, and all that excited me. I like to learn new things. Today I spoke with the middle school students at Plymouth South.
Yes.
And Tammy Burgess, the editor at the Old Colony, had said this to me, and I think it's true, that the one thing you need to be a journalist, whatever that is, and it's changing day to day, is curiosity. And I think that's what I have, an abundance of.
Yes, you do.
I'm interested in what's going on around me. Maybe not what I should be interested in. I'm distractible.
Could you be an investigative reporter?
I think that takes a lot of experience and skill and doggedness or whatever.
That's what my son-in-law George does.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I have those skills, because I might be interested in doing some research along the line, and then I get distracted by something else or whatever. So I do like researching interesting things around me, but I'm not sure if I would be that type of journalist who really have to be long-term people. You have to gather the data,
dig it up.
and put things together over a long period of time.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm somebody that needs a little more instantaneous
like Frank,
feedback.
you are a free spirit. Look at the hair.
that's true,
honest to God. And so you told us where you went to school, and you write now for the Old Colony Memorial. And I think you do know George, don't you?
I do. I've met George before. We were both I was dismayed to find him on the Mayflower when it came back to Fairhaven. I thought I would be the only journalist on board.
Oh, really?
That's a little naive of me, but he was there, and I have to say he was working hard.
Yeah.
I think I was enjoying it more than he was, but he probably turned it into more material.
He's a serious guy.
He was,
Yeah.
I was like, stand back, this guy he needs, the GPS is his,
And one question is, and then we're going to get to the, how do you like covering the selectmen's meeting?
Charlie Mathewson, who used to work for the Old Colony,
Yeah.
now works for ATD and other organizations, a very talented and experienced guy, said to me last night was not the most scintillating Board of Selectmen's meeting.
I went to bed.
They're important. they do provide important information
Yeah.
that we need to make available to people.
Yes.
But Charlie says to me, sotto voce, little voice off to the side, he says, at least this isn't the Duxbury Board of Selectmen.
Oh, really?
And by that, what he meant was, he says they're very legalistic.
Oh, are they?
And I would say that,
Dry.
having covered a lot of different boards and boards of selectmen in other towns through the years, that they can be very interesting and they can provide a lot of information. So it's up and down, but I do enjoy it, and I think it's important to be there.
I think the way Matt Moratori chairs that meeting is really good. I do, because he also he knows the rules and regulation, bylaws and whatnot, but he also has a sense of humor. Matt can smile and the whole room.
I think he allows also the other board members to play an important role, and I think that I've seen the chairmanship of that Board of Selectmen for the past 4 or 5 years have the chairmen have been deferential and trying not to trying to direct things and facilitate, and I think that oftentimes works. I'd like to hear maybe him speak more, and maybe now that he's running for state rep, we'll hear more specific things from him. But I think he does run a good board, and I don't really have any complaints, especially again when you compare to some either Wild West or nothing going on boards that I've had the privilege to cover. Well,
I know he respects each and every one of them, and he does.
You have to say the civility thing. I'm old in tooth and hair, and when he brought up the civility notions of that was going to be a main thrust of what they did, I was a little cynical about it. And but in truth, if you follow through on that, you do end up with more productive meetings that don't just end up being, attacks back and forth.
Oh, sure.
And I think that's worked. And the town moving in that direction, I think a lot of people are saying that that's something worth, following other towns.
Well, nothing is worse than someone, an elected official in the town, whether you're a town meeting member or what, putting down another official. And this has happened, and just recently, and I don't care for it at all.
A good open discussion is good, but you never need to have name calling, or rarely.
Now, Frank, I'm going to tell you, I knew of you as a reporter, but I had no idea how much talent you have.
Really? Didn't know.
Frank, be serious for a minute. Just a minute. I know it's hard for you to take a compliment. I'm telling you, your photos took my breath away in the morning. I got up looking forward to them.
And I would just say, and I'll say it, the night, and I'll say it for the year, that what happened in a lot of ways was that I was privileged to be able to go around in the morning and see what a beautiful community this is.
How did you do it, Frank? I know you had to wake up like at 4:35 in the morning, get yourself together, have a little bite, if at all.
Ignorance can be a very good thing, because I set out to do this, not really setting out to do this. I set out to take that one first picture.
Let me interrupt you. How did you get this idea? Let's start that way. What brought this on?
Well, the idea goes back to my wife is Scottish, and we spent a wonderful 2 weeks when my brother got married in Edinburgh, now about 20 years ago.
Beautiful country.
And I learned about this, and wanting to know a little bit more about the community, I learned about this New Year's Eve tradition they have called first footing. I think it's also, I don't want to say what the Gaelic is, I'll probably get that wrong. But it's called first footing, and it's a kind of very folkloric, traditional notion, understandable notion, that that first person who comes across your threshold on the first day of the year is will bode good or bad for the year. So you treat him very well, you give him the best seat in the house, you give him your best whiskey, and therefore
$10 and
you're setting the tone for the year.
Yeah.
So that little notion was in my head.
I believe
I wanted
that.
to set the tone for the year for myself, to know more about my community, to learn more about it, a lot of things like that. So I went out on that first morning, and I thought, let's see, and I had the iPhone, this phone, which has really been through some hell and high water, literally, and I came to a place that I was familiar with, but not that knowledgeable about, which is Ellisville Harbor, the state park
beautiful.
there. And there happened to have been some snow on the ground, and fresh snow, and yet the sun was bursting through the clouds, and I took a picture with the iPhone, and it really came out nicely. And that was my first footing. That was like, maybe I should do this every morning. It'd be great for me. It'd get up. It'd be a good discipline. And people immediately climbed on that bandwagon and said, you should do that. And before I knew it, I was publicly committing myself to it. Not knowing, again, that ignorance, not knowing what I was getting myself into. And the notion of that the clock, in terms of sunrise, falls way back. That though that morning was, I think, 7:10 a.m. first day of the year, sunrise. Within a few months, sunrise would be 5:06. And in order to find a sunrise picture at a different location every day at 5:06 in the morning, you better get up darn early.
Ungodly hour.
So realizing that, first I went down to getting up at 5, and then I said, you know something, I'm just going to go in for the whole Megillah, and I went, let's get up every morning at 4. So it became a great discipline. I'd get up, and sometimes I would have a destination, but a lot of times I would just be, you know, I haven't been to that part of town, I haven't been to that pond, I'm going to head down the road, and if I see something else that catches my attention, I'll do that, but I'll see what I can find. And I wanted to represent as much of the whole community as I could. I didn't know how I was going to do it every morning, but I thought, what the heck, it's going to be fun. And I've said it was fun. It really was fun.
Well, it was, and it showed in your photos, Frank, and you would put a little quip or a few sentences down, and we traveled with you. Your journey was our journey. And it was a wonderful discovery because, believe it or not, I've been here 41 years this April, and there were parts that I'd never seen.
Oh, I would say that I saw more of the town, or more places that people haven't seen, than a large percentage of the population, because they're difficult to get to. They're out of the way. They're not just off the highway.
You had to hike in.
Like, for example, Bloody Pond is a great example. Bloody Pond is right off Long Pond Road. At least both entrances, if you can call them that, are. One of them is literally a few hundred yards from my home. I had never been to Bloody Pond. One day I went to the first entrance, which is near the right near the intersection, across from the intersection of Halfway Pond Road and Long Pond. And I went down there, and there was a little kind of a private walk, but I just walked down and took a nice picture. Then the next day, I saw that it's kind of an hourglass shape. I'm not exactly sure, but there's a little narrowing toward the center. So the southern end of it, you have to access off farther down Long Pond Road. And I almost couldn't find that entrance. It turns out it's like over a hump and down this dirt road, and you go forever and come to a gate that luckily for me was open because it's conservation land, and you go and you go and you go, and then finally you come to this little clearing. There's a little almost sandy beach, and I thought, who the heck lives here, and aren't they some of the luckiest people in the world? And of course, who has seen that except for a few fishermen or the other people that live on Bloody Pond? You just wouldn't, unless you're half crazy like me, take your car down that road. My Camry should not have been on that road. And I hope my wife's not watching this. She's always saying, like, we got to keep these cars in good shape, you know. And but you know, those are the places in this town. There are more out of the way beautiful places in this town
There
than
are.
most towns have beautiful places in total. You know, and I found many of them, not all of them by a long shot.
So, I mean, you did this willingly every morning and posted these, by the way, that you could sell. They're that beautiful. And I'm
And
not
the
supposed to
the
say
toll-free
that.
number.
But, yeah, I'm not supposed to say that, but I'm telling you. Why did you want to do this, Frank? You gave a little hint here. You felt you needed this. You wanted to start your new year off right.
One of the things is I think we all live in a society now, in a culture that is not firmly rooted. We don't expect necessarily to be in one place. We don't think of where we live, most people. This is my philosophy here. We don't think of where we live as where we belong. People have SUV, RVs, and boats in their front yards because where they really want to be is someplace else. That's often the case. And in a lot of instances, that's a mistake because where you are in Plymouth, you should want to be.
Oh, yeah,
We have
absolutely.
history. We have beautiful ponds. We have miles of ocean front. We have so many things
Good
that you
people.
would go looking for. Like I go hiking, or used to a lot, in the White Mountains. And I'd love to do that anytime. It's gorgeous up there in the Appalachian Mountain Club and the trails they have up there. But in this town, you can find one of the rarest commodities in America, silence. You can go down Gramps Loop, down Mast Road, and you can get there and not hear any sounds. Be by yourself in quiet serenity. That's gold, I think.
It's
you know?
it's spiritual. You know who talks like that because he does it often?
Malcolm?
Mark Garrett.
Oh, Mark Garrett.
He'll take the dogs, he'll mush, it's called mushing, he'll stop. And he says it's so spiritual.
Yeah, and that's available in this community. So one of
Yeah.
the things I realized, I mean, I've lived here for almost 30 years, but I was one of those people who never came downtown. I commuted to Charlestown every day to work for many years and other places. And so I was one of those people where I didn't really live here, even though my home was down there off Halfway Pond Road. But when I started to work here and write about this town,
Of course.
I suddenly started to see not only the beautiful sights, but wonderful people that I didn't know existed, wonderful, talented, creative people. And suddenly I had a renewed interest in the community. So one of the things I was thinking before I started doing this was, maybe I want to walk to work. That was a notion I had, which would probably take,
From where you are?
I don't know what it would take, 2 hours, 3 hours?
Frank!
Anyway, the notion was simply that I wanted to be familiar with my community, and there's almost no better way than to walk it.
Of
And
course.
so I thought that's a little more, almost more impractical than what I did. But this was another notion along those lines. I wanted to know more about the community. I wanted to be familiar with the community. I wanted to see it.
And you went
know?
into neighborhoods too, Frank. You took-
Neighborhoods were wonderful, yeah. It's
Yeah.
another revelation for me, not for the people in those neighborhoods, although they loved the fact that I did that. Some mornings I would take a picture, but then do the whole neighborhood.
Yes.
And I found these fascinating neighborhoods from the 20s or the 1880s, or
Yes.
certain types of architecture, beautiful little craftsman homes, you know, New England farmhouse homes, Victorians, you know, all sorts of little communities. And I said, geez, I'd love to live here, because these really felt like communities.
Yes.
I mean, I essentially live in the suburbs.
Well, you live
And,
in the woods.
Well, you know, there's homes all along the street,
Yeah.
but it's not, it doesn't have the community feel. And
Yeah.
that's an issue. That's another issue that gets involved in politics and engagement or whatever. But you know, that's so. You know, why did I want to do that? I think they're very obvious and reasons that we all kind of share. Sometimes people don't have that opportunity. If you worked in Charlestown and had a 90-minute commute,
I love Charlestown.
but I'm just saying, if you had
Yeah.
to drive there to work and come back at night, chances are you're not on the weekend. You're not going to say, "Let me explore the woods."
No.
You know, you might, but more
Depends who you are.
likely you
Yeah.
get the barbecue out, or you
Yeah.
say, "Where am I going on vacation?" Essentially, the whole year I went on vacation in Plymouth. I shouldn't say that because I want more vacation at work.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it.
And now, well, let's see some of those photos. Now, Jimmy put them in the Getner a little while ago. and I think we have 20 of them. And how many did you take?
Well, there's one for every day, but I took over 5,000.
Yeah, over
Yeah,
5,000. I know.
because I would just snap away,
Yeah.
and then I would look through what I have and say, well, that looks interesting, or that doesn't, or this one needs a lot of work because it was a horrible day.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have any there. If I would, I'm having a little laptop problem, so I
Yeah.
wasn't able to give you my selection of a sampling. So if I had, I would have included some of the ones where essentially I used every trick in the book to try to make it something, because that day it was raining and
Yes, I remember
sleeting
those
and
days, yeah.
and I would look for an industrial setting
Yes,
or something. So
and you did fine.
I don't know what you have.
Jimmy,
can we see those any place?
Yeah, this is the first one. Tell us.
Well, that's just, sad to say how many times I relied on Plymouth Harbor, and that is probably between Nelson and Peter Gomes' home. What's that, Winter
sure,
Street?
yep.
Somewhere between there.
Okay.
One of my favorite things was when the tide was out, I bought myself some waders, and I would go out as far as I could.
Oh, wow.
And because that's a special ecological environment when the tide is way out, you see
Yes.
things like, I think in this picture it's hard to discern, but what do they call them? Razor clams?
Yes.
You'd see all these razor clams stuck out of the mud flats, and most of them had already been consumed by what should be very fat seagulls and other birds.
Yeah.
But every once in a while you'd see the tongue of one of the razor clams. You could go up to it and it would whoop, dart down
Yes.
into the. And I loved that. It was like a playground, and that just came out very nice. See, that's a very similar. It might have even been the same
looks the
day.
same.
But there's a heron in the water there, and that's that almost iconic home. It's a fairly new home on Long Beach,
Yep.
and the mud flats and everything. And you get the right light early on. They were sunrise pictures by name, but very often, most often, they were before sunrise, because that was when the light was the best. There's almost a moment when you go from night. It's like there's a term for the dusk called gloaming, the gloaming.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I remember learning a piano song when I was a little boy called the gloaming, and that's that period after the sun sets before it's
Okay,
dark.
okay.
And this is what I consider the gloaming of that past picture,
right.
the gloaming in the morning. That period between darkness and before the sun rises,
The
which I think
gloaming.
has some of the best light.
That's great.
So
Next one, Jimmy. Isn't that beautiful?
I'm trying to remember where that is. That is either, I have these all chronologically on my computer if I could access them all, but that is either the off halfway pond, maybe like the Agawam River, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Or it's, I was in Tidmarsh near you.
Okay.
Tidmarsh Farms, in the access road that leads out.
That
The
does
access-
look like that.
You know that access road that leads out?
Yes.
I think that's what that might be.
I was going to say that to you because we've
Yeah.
been there 100 times, but
Yeah, so
that's beautiful. Next one, Jim.
that's a beautiful property and a great
Oh,
story.
absolutely.
And you know where that is, right? Do you know where that
I
is?
really can't.
That's not.
see it too
What's the south side of the Pine Hills called? Is it called the Pine Hills? You know, the development on the south side.
Oh, on the left there as you're coming down?
If you're coming from Manomet headed out to the highway, it would be on the left side.
Okay, that little cul-de-sac.
No, the big development that's across from the Pine Hills main entrance is. I can't remember what it's called right now.
Can't. Shallow. What? Clark Estates.
Yeah, something like that. I don't
Okay.
think it's Clark Estates, but it's one of those down there. And at the very back of this massive development of 55 plus housing, there is a preserved area that leads down to a little kayak launching places for the people there. And across that pond on an island is essentially abandoned home. And,
Really? I would love
I'd
to-
love to paddle out there. I think it's private property
Yeah.
still though, but I think the Pine Hills or the developers own that piece of property too. But you know what I'm talking about, that kayak launching
Yes.
area?
Do you know who knows all these places? I bet it is Randy Parker. Randy,
Yes. What is it, Great Island Pond?
Great Island?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. That's the area, yeah.
Is that you, Frank?
That is me, and did
What a great picture.
I think I set this on a timer to go off.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what that is. A couple times I had my friend Adam Ellis, a great photographer, does a lot of sports photography and other photography, come out with me.
Yeah.
And a couple times he took a couple pictures of me, but I'm not sure if this is that. I think I took this myself. I also met a woman, Kristen Hughes, on Kingsbridge Shores, a great photographer who loves these silhouettes.
Yeah, I love
She loves
them
to
too.
take sunrise silhouettes. This
Yeah.
is about as late in the day as I would ever be. The sun is actually up.
Coming up, yeah.
Usually I'm fleeing by then. And I used to love the fact that I would go out there and take the picture and process it and send it into Facebook and
Yeah.
then start to work. And I'd be at work 2 hours for anybody else.
Yeah.
You know, so it felt like a great productive period.
I love this
Well,
picture.
you know, is this Wedge might have taken this?
Yeah, I think he did. I think you posted Wedge took
Yeah,
that.
this is actually the final day, the finale,
Yes.
the 365th Sunrise at Plymouth Plantation.
Yeah.
And that's me with I guess you could call that a bullhorn.
Yeah.
Hysterically, that is a leather megaphone. Commemorative of a prep school football game in like 1919 that someone
Excellent.
gave me.
Oh, that's
so it's
excellent.
totally low tech, and that's why nobody could hear me, I think, you know. Even though I was threatening them with a cannon if they didn't behave, but that's in the fort at the plantation, obviously, and everybody was bundled up.
Yes.
But the remarkable thing was about this picture, and I love that picture that Wedge took, was I think it does indicate what happened. It was a magical morning. People were buzzed. People were high. People were
Yes.
so positive about being
Celebrating,
there.
yep.
And it caught me by surprise in a lot of ways. I was glad to see the people were going to show up.
Yeah.
But their mood, their kind of euphoria
Giddy.
about the community. I think there
Yes.
was a shared love of the community.
Yes.
Because there's a story with this one, and Anna, do you recognize where that is?
No.
That is the stoplight at the end, the intersection of Powerhouse Road and Rocky Hill Road at the entrance to the nuclear power plant.
Oh.
And I took that fairly early on in January or something. I was thinking, where should I go to take pictures? And why not take a sunrise picture at the nuclear power plant? Well, shortly after taking this picture, a black SUV
Pulled
rolls
up.
up, and a guy with an M16 gets out
Really?
and demands that I turn over my camera to him and that I delete all the photographs. And he just couldn't believe, and I can understand this.
Yeah.
You're doing what? I'm taking sunrise pictures. Yeah, right. Of the plant? Well, I'm going to go all around town, I told him.
Well, that isn't the plant.
It's on the, if you turn into the left, see there's a truck going in.
Oh, now I see. See,
Yeah.
I'm blind as a bat. So-
Because, in fact, unless I wanted to be arrested, I couldn't get a sunrise picture of the plant.
No, you can't.
The water, you know, I was hoping to get some kind of vista,
Yeah.
but I just took this, and that's an iPhone picture, too.
So did he let you keep?
Oh, yeah, there was like a 20-minute call, and he was on his
Oh, my.
walkie-talkie, and...
Well, it's
and,
good to know that, you know.
Oh, yeah, right, they showed up. Who was
Yeah.
the strange guy taking pictures?
That's beautiful.
What is the name of that? Is it Spring Street and Church Street? That little street that you can access off Summer Street that climbs the hill to Burial Hill, that
Oh,
makes
yeah.
a sharp right and goes down
Oh,
past the
no.
community center.
It's not.
Guys are on the air. Yes.
Okay.
Let's have the next
We
photo.
apologize to everybody. The whole studio went down, the whole station. But Frank, can you see that picture in there?
Where?
It's-
That's the one we were talking about. The
I have no idea.
Burial Hill, I believe. Yeah,
I can't
that's
see
Burial
it.
Hill. Yeah, that's the same one.
Church Street.
Yeah, I think it's Church Street.
Oh my goodness, I said Church Street and the lights went out.
Could be Burial Hill. It's haunted. They don't want us talking about them.
Oh my.
There's your next
There's
one.
the next one, the house.
Oh, that's, again, that's right down the street from that. That's the 1749 courthouse.
Right.
Yeah, just a picture of that.
There it is.
Yeah, just another black and white picture. And that's the kind of undiscovered gem in town, isn't it? There's a lot goes on there now. Do you know it has
It's
great?
not advertised
Do you know it
enough,
has great
Frank.
acoustics?
Yes, I do know
I
that.
went to a.
Has a museum upstairs.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Upstairs, they
Yeah.
have nice acoustics. I went to a concert that celebrated the 400th anniversary of the, I know I'm going to get this wrong, the Ainsworth Psalm book. That was the original Psalm book the Pilgrims used. And so a lot of people from the plantation came, and they did different interpretations of the various Psalms musically, including one solo on a saxophone. I thought it was beautiful. But the acoustics up there are great. There should be more music
Was
and
that
recitals up there.
advertised, Frank?
You know, it was probably not advertised per se because, you know, there's a bunch of people volunteering to do that, and they
It's
probably
a
didn't have the money to
small
advertise
area,
it.
yeah.
There was some information in the paper and things like that, but, you know, there was, 20, 30 people there. It was a beautiful night. I did some video of it. That's the picture. The picture there is picture number 1. That's Ellisville State Harbor.
Yes.
I actually did picture 364 there as well.
Okay. Okay.
So picture 1 and picture 364 were essentially the same view. I tried to emulate it on the 364th or 363rd, but that's Ellisville State Harbor, and just the way the clouds kind of broke open and the sun was
Yeah.
coming up and the snow,
Beautiful.
and that was the very first picture. So that got me excited about at least the potential to do something of interest in the morning that maybe more than myself would be interested in.
Now you're going to frame that for yourself? For the house? I mean, really, Frank, you have to.
You know, I know exactly where that is. This one, this question mark, is Namelock Drive in Cedarville.
Oh, Namelock Drive.
You know,
yeah.
it's an area with a lot
I
of
know where the-
precarious
yes.
sea cliff. There are
Yes.
cliffs, and but that's oftentimes a beautiful view there. Just to the right is the Sagamore Highlands. You're really looking straight out at maybe like Providence. I mean, P-Town.
And if you look straight down, there's a terrible cliff.
Yeah, that they have had a lot of issues
Yes.
with.
Oh,
although
it's
people
just-
are still building there.
Oh my God,
But,
it's awful.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Oh, you know.
Oh, that is
and-
precious.
And this was maybe my favorite picture. It was one that
too.
immediately struck me as working out perfectly, and there's nothing changed or treated or highlighted.
that perspective is perfect.
It was not only the
Frank.
perspective, but the frozen harbor and the lights, which are on Isaacs and other places across
Yes.
there, the angle and everything, the rigid line from the taut line because it was frozen. All those things made what looked to me immediately like a Van Gogh, like Starry
Yes,
Night. You
but
know,
Frank, let's interpret this. My interpretation of this
interpret this.
is also, yes, it is cold, but it has this homey, wonderful feel to it.
Well, it's like I
this
say,
is a nice place to be. This is a happy, wonderful place to live.
Yeah, it's kind of a child Christmassy feel.
Yes.
The lights glowing. Look how the lights are 3 or 4 times, almost like they're skimmed stones. You know, there's the
Yes.
lights, and then there's the first reflection, and then another reflection, and
Just beautiful. The lights are starting to come back on. Just keep going, Frank. Oh, this is
this
another
is just,
one.
Just a lucky picture at the time. I loved how the cross hatches or whatever they are, the stays across the masts are all in line with the top level kind of the clouds.
Yes.
And but that's just the Plymouth Yacht Club.
It
And,
reminds me of Portugal a little bit.
yeah, just beautiful little shapes there that I
Yeah.
was lucky to see. I probably took 100 pictures that morning and then turned around and went, oh, that looks nice, and was able to
Frank, did
snap that
anybody
off.
ever, aside from the power plant, stop you and talk to you?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I had little interesting stories like that. One of them was a guy, well, I don't want to give away the punchline kind of,
Yeah.
but I was going to the end of Gunner's Exchange Pond Road with the intention of taking a picture of Gunner's Exchange Pond. And when I came to the end, the last 100 yards or so were a private driveway. And, I had a kind of rule of thumb that I wouldn't cross over private property unless it was kind of, held in common, like a boat landing or something. And, but this was somebody's driveway. So I paused for a minute and thought, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go this morning? And all of a sudden, a black pickup truck with tinted windows pulls up, and I'm thinking, okay. And the guy rolls his window down, and I roll my window down. I knew the guy.
Oh,
And it turns out it was
great.
his mother's property and a lot of bogs that he's very protective of.
Sure.
But he gave me some advice about walking through the woods, and I ended up on a different pond and took a nice picture. But I had, little encounters, but most of Plymouth was either asleep or
Just rolling
or
over.
not so concerned, not so ready to jump.
Yeah.
As I've said to a lot of people, not wanting to malign Texas too much, but if this was, I couldn't have gotten away with this in Texas without getting shot at a few times,
Yeah.
probably, because I was early morning traipsing all around. What was
Yeah.
I up to?
Yeah.
I did run into a lot of police in different places.
Yeah.
And
That's a good thing.
A couple times they seemed to follow me, but they gave up after a while, seeing that I wasn't either meandering.
Threatening, yeah.
I wasn't threatening or meandering. And
What is this, Frank? Well, who are these men in these tuxes?
this is the Masons, the Masonic Lodge.
Oh, sure.
And they were at the 365th sunrise picture at the plantation and dressed up in tuxes.
Oh, sure.
And did I take this picture or did they take this picture? I'm not sure. But I loved their attitude, their enthusiasm, and
This is hometown, Frank.
Yeah.
You touched a nerve.
and at that occasion, a lot of groups, wonderful groups, showed up. As a matter of fact, I ran into Melissa from. Is it Melissa? I may be getting her name wrong. From the ARC of Plymouth, which used to be
sure.
called the Association of
Yeah.
Retired Citizens, and she said to me that. I was introducing myself. She goes, "Oh, I was at the 365th at the plantation." I go, "Oh." I run into people all the time that way, and
Yeah.
the reason I don't recognize them, or at least I have the excuse for saying this, is that most people were bundled
up.
hats and scarves and puffy
Blankets
jackets and
all that.
So usually all I saw was a kind of cherubic smile of people, and so a lot of people there, and I didn't necessarily get to say hello to them. So hello, I appreciate that you were there, and.
What is this, Frank?
This is just a close-up of a weed, and I actually have lost the little macro lens that can go right onto your iPhone, but on a particularly rainy day on Fresh Pond, I think. Is it Fresh Pond?
By me.
No,
Road?
not Fresh Pond. What's it? Off 44.
Oh.
Clear Pond?
I've
I've been to so many ponds, but I just focused in, and I think it's a beautiful little
It
picture,
is.
and it almost looks like something you'd learn in 7th grade biology about
Yeah.
what happens when the egg and the zygote and the.
This I fell in love with.
This is Manomet, of course. That's
I told
that's
you.
Bartlett Pond.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right on Facebook. Frank, I want to get this photo. I love this. I love the way it's framed.
It's a lovely rosy. That kind of view is all too frequent. Those people are so lucky.
Yeah.
I mean, they have just beyond there Whitehorse Beach.
Yeah.
And they have that pond there, so they get all this reflected warm light. I'm sure they have issues when the tide comes rolling in and fills that pond up. But what a wonderful little place to live, and I guess
is.
people have lived there for a long time.
Long time.
Yeah.
Those people,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
But it's a great little area.
This is again the 365th, and that is the Doyles, and I can't see per se who is behind them there, but the Doyles are part of Plymouth Rock oysters.
Oh, sure.
One of the two species or varietals, I should say, in some way, of oysters that are now truly Plymouth Harbor oysters and are getting rave reviews from restaurants all
They
around. As a matter
are.
of fact, I just had a dinner with some friends at the Rye Tavern a couple weeks ago, and I specifically ordered their oysters, and they were fabulous. And of course, what you always want in an oyster, if you like them at all, is freshness. Can you get any fresher than
Plymouth Harbor.
Plymouth Harbor oysters? And they came. They were some of the earliest people to say they would come to the 365th. And I kind of assumed, I'd bring oysters, and they did, and and it kind of sparked a lot of other people because there was many people giving out,
food and
cranberry
coffee,
bread and coffee, and there was a breakfast stout that was being served.
I got to go to the next
And,
one. Not that I drink beer, but I have to make the next one. Make that commitment.
Now, I think, do we actually call this Ship Pond? At the corner of, before you get to, I'm forgetting the name, but I think this is Ship Pond. And it's very hard to get to. You have to kind of walk down someone's driveway. But I had an escort that day from somebody that lived in the neighborhood. And I liked the picture. And what I most liked about it, it was a place I wanted to get to and had a hard time. And then somebody gave me an escort so that I had,
Was it a long dirt, this wide? Did you have to walk?
Well, you have to walk, and eventually
Yeah.
this comes out, if you wrap around this pond on the other side is the ocean, and
Was there a house there at the little sandy beach that you arrived at, or was it just open?
no, you're looking at a house that's on the corner of another road on the other side,
Right.
but there's a stretch there of no houses and very rocky beach.
Yeah.
Very pretty though, but you know what that
What's
is?
that?
That's
Top of the
Symes' house. Yep.
Symes.
Yeah, I was with Randy. Randy Parker brought me up and
Yep.
opened up that top of the Symes'
Widow's
house.
Walk, yeah.
Yeah, and I took a few pictures. That's just one of them. This isn't my favorite one from that day, but like I say, I was having some problems, and I just grabbed as many pictures
Yeah.
as I could find, and because they're chronologically listed and virtually compiled in Sunrise, and that virtual listing has disappeared because the software is not working. So I just tried to grab from some dates.
Oh, this is
Now
so great.
That is right. This is like the first landing south of the nuclear power plant.
Yep.
Off Rocky Hill Road.
Yep, I know where it is.
Some wonderful homes down there. That big,
There are.
there's a big white
Yeah.
float, or on the corner of the street down
Yes,
there.
yes.
Some beautiful homes, but this one I, did a black and white version, and
Composite, yeah.
then turned on, tinted the whole thing.
I love it.
It's pretty down there.
It's
I mean, there's
very
so
modern.
many pretty places.
And we're back to the beginning.
That's the beginning. Yeah, that's the day one.
Oh,
Oh, and there's the famous photographer himself.
You're so funny.
But the audience isn't seeing that.
Well, we had a little thing here, huh, Frank? All the lights went out. I
was
said
exciting.
church, and the lights went out. But we prevailed. PAC TV prevailed. Thank you, Dustin, and Kenny, and Jimmy, and Comcast. What? What, Kenny?
You just have to say thank you to the person who wiped out that pole or something.
Oh, I don't know what happened.
We've had a few occasions where the rain has precipitated.
It's raining very heavily.
yeah,
That's
and
the problem is.
It shouldn't, but we had all that snow, and we had wind, and we didn't lose power for much
I
extended period
know.
at all. And then just a couple weeks ago, we had
Yes.
some rain, and everybody. Now I remember what it was. NSTAR reported that they had been working on a substation, so they had rerouted the lines, and then a tree went down near the Pine Hills, and power went off in places all over town.
Yeah,
the
South Plymouth.
Pine Hills lost it for 2.5 hours, I heard.
Yeah.
But it was like, we had a winter storm and we didn't get it, but then we lose it for this.
Yeah, we were in Florida and amazed that nobody lost power.
Yeah. Thank goodness for that.
One
that's the
time
worst.
here at PAC TV, the lights went out, and when was it Verizon? Comcast came. They found a dead squirrel electrocuted under the under the cable.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. He bit through the cable and
Yeah, that happens. Yeah.
put everything out.
Yeah.
Poor squirrel.
A poor squirrel. I love squirrels.
Yes.
So, but Frank, are you going to have a show here? PAC TV has a wonderful gallery.
Yeah, I said to you earlier when we were talking before the show started that there's some challenges for me in putting all these pictures together in a format, and I've been trying to do some of that. I've been working on writing a book about the year, and also how I can produce these or reproduce these pictures in formats that I'd feel comfortable with presenting to the public, whatever. And I would like to do something along those lines, and I can't promise it though, because it's a lot of extra work.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find the time. The great thing about being a community journalist is you don't know what you're going to do on a day-to-day basis. Something interesting always seems to
Pops up,
happen.
yeah.
The bad thing about being a community journalist is that you don't know what you're going to do, so it's hard to plan long range for things, you know, for your personal life, you know.
Yeah. Unless at night you know you're going to be covering a meeting or something, but during the day you could be sent out on anything.
Right. You know, like I say, you know, yesterday we were talking about, I went out to cover the Mayflower 2 under sail, walked to the end of Long Beach and found the sea serpent.
Yes.
Wasn't a sea serpent, turned out to be a dolphin, and turned out also be a dolphin they had previously recorded that had died on a mud flat in September.
Oh,
and they matched teeth up, and it turned out it had come back up ashore in the Inner Harbor. It's still interesting that it was in the Inner Harbor of Plymouth.
Who do you call, Frank? You said there's a procedure.
You call the New England Aquarium, as a matter of fact, in this area. There's 2 regions in Massachusetts coast that handle sea mammals such as whales, dolphins, porpoises, seals, and sea turtles. And one of the regions goes from the canal north, which essentially Plymouth north, and the other region is Cape Cod. And for our area, you contact the New England Aquarium. They have an email, which I think is rescue@neaq.org. Wow. And then they either send out their own crew if it's of a live stranding, or they can make arrangement, as they did this time, to have the whale and dolphin group that's on Nelson Street.
Yes.
And they sent out a crew, and they found where I told them the dolphin was and matched it up with their records. But I've written a story for this next issue in the Old Colony about what the procedure is.
Good, because people should know that.
Learning experience for me, but those are the kinds of things that keep me from working on the personal things. You know, I mean. Well,
now that your wife is retired, can she help you?
I can put her to work.
Yes.
Is that how that works? I'll have to talk to her about that.
Yeah. Hey, what's wrong with this picture?
No. That's.
She would, you know, if she could.
She
has been helping me on one level. The book I'm trying to work on is going to have many levels, and one of the levels is the picture where I was and the general impressions I had. Another level is going to be the comments of people online, and where they're the most interesting and pithy or whatever, I'm going to include them related to that specific day in the picture. And she's been going through Facebook for me and copying over all the comments and printing them out on a sheet, because later I will then add them. And then the final level is a kind of the philosophical introspective level about what it all meant as it evolved through the year.
I like that.
So that's kind of what I want to write. I don't want it to be a coffee table book. I want it to be a book that nobody wants to publish or pay for, you know. You know, one of those books.
Well, a book that means something to us.
Yeah, a book that means something to me. Otherwise, it's very hard to find the energy to write it. Although, you know, I'd love to find other ways to actually sell some of the pictures, maybe in calendars or on your typical things or posters. One of the things I've done, and I haven't printed it out on a professional level, but just a picture of the 600 or so better pictures on a poster with the background of that original first day picture. And just a notion of 365 Plymouth sunrises is very effective. And I'd like to produce a few things like that.
Well, you are very exciting, Frank. You've got this ahead of you, and you can take your time. You know, we'll wait. And
you'll wait.
Absolutely, and I know there's a market for it. But you did a great thing. You really did. I think it's one of the marks in life that you're going to, when you're very, very old, be very proud of.
I'm very, very old, as opposed to old.
You're not old, Frank.
No, we're all in our middle age, aren't we, you know?
Yeah, well.
Oh, really? You know? My father's 91, you know?
Oh, God, love him.
You know, and has a much more intensive social life than I do.
Really? Is he here? Is he?
He lives in Washington, D.C.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
or the Washington, D.C. area in Maryland.
Yeah.
But he travels a lot. And
Good for him.
He's on various boards and this and that. And he's always sending me his itinerary. I'm traveling here, I'm traveling there. Take me, don't tell me, I tell him. You know?
Yeah, take me.
Yeah, I don't want to hear about it unless I'm with you.
But Frank, you have to take some time off. You know, go
Yeah.
back to Scotland too sometime.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I know it
I'd
is.
recommend that to anyone. It's so dramatic.
My Kimberly
Yeah.
went there.
Yeah, I loved that. That was very nice. I love to travel because I was a service brat. That's my, you know, my father was in the Air Force, and we traveled, moved every 2 years. And I wondered why, when I first started to work professionally, every 2 years I'd want to get into a new job. And I realized that used to be your lifestyle for the
What's
first
your
18
life?
years.
Oh, God, I don't think I'd like that. But Frank, I'm going to have you on again. You fix that computer of yours, and we'll just do an hour of those photos.
Okay.
And maybe you'll get deeper into the book, and we can talk more about I've had a lot of authors on. And I just, I want to thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It was fun, and the storm made it even more exciting.
Oh,
you know?
my God, the lights went out. What is it? The lights went out in Phoenix? No, the lights went out in Georgia. That's what. Give it up. Okay.
Sing it or shut up.
Next week, not this coming weekend, the following weekend, March 21st to the 23rd, the Rotary will be on. And I'm looking at the wrong camera. He's got 4 cameras up here. I'm not used to this. So the Rotary will be holding their auction from the 21st of March to the 23rd, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Call in with your bids. It helps the community. It's just like what the Lions do. They are for the community. They give money to the community. What better could you ask for? Now I want to thank Jimmy, Steve, and my husband Ken for a great show. It's been 5 weeks. It's like riding a bicycle, I think. And I had a great guest on here tonight. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. See you in 7.